Welcome to the Fearless Homeschool podcast with Makali, talking everything homeschooling, family, learning, and life. A space where we can learn and grow together because
why do it alone?
Welcome to part 2 of our chat with Penny Graham. We left our chat just after Penny discussed how she incorporated movement into her children's classical learning to help cement those basic number facts. We rejoin after an observation which leads Penny to discuss another philosophy she has incorporated into her homeschool journey. I hope you enjoy.
Absolutely. And I love that you put the movement into there because there's so much in now saying that kids will learn and it will stick better if you're doing things like that while you're trying to learn. I love that, kicking the soccer ball. It's kind of a little bit, I know Steiner's more about the musicality and the rhythm of it, but that's kind of a bit Steinerish in that approach as well, that there's that rhythmic to it as they're learning. It's really cool. Look at you go.
Interesting you said that because I did come across Steiner as well, and it's one of those other moments I was like, oh, I love the drawing and the chalkboard, and I use a chalkboard in our homeschool as well, and they had I was like, wow, this is just like Charlotte Mason. So I had to do a bit of research in my limited time and energy of that, and I found something else that we use in our homeschool from Steiner is the idea of the main lesson. I don't know if you've come across that before, but it's the idea of it's the idea of learning in a subject or a topic intensely. So back when I started the school at home approach and I was trying to fit everything into a timetable, I felt like we had to carry a science, a history, a geography subject all through the year. And then I realized, no, we actually don't. We've got the freedom as homeschoolers to do what we like. And I found myself and my kids were jumping in our minds. Tuesday, oh, we're doing science today. Oh, Wednesday, oh, we're doing history. Where are we up to in history? And we'll sort of just, especially we were reading chapter books to go along with it. And I felt like we were kind of jumping. So I thought, well, why don't we just do science for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever intensively? And we don't actually have to do science and history at the same time. We can do science for a block, and then we can do history for a block, and then we can do geography for a block. And then if we feel like it, we'll go back to science for a block. And then I realized that that's exactly what the Steiner do. They do a main lesson a few hours a day for 2 or 3 weeks on a particular topic, and then they immerse themselves in that topic and they really enjoy and learn deeply in that topic, and then that's that topic done and they move on to something else. So we've kind of incorporated that, and I've probably talked a bit about that on the workshops I've done with a family learning approach, and that's exactly what we do. So we do sort of between 4 and 6 weeks, and in those 4 to 6 weeks we'll sort of set the topic of our morning time, which is a big Charlotte Mason thing. I can mention a bit more in detail in a minute. And so we will kind of immerse ourselves in that topic. We've done this past year, we've done space, and we've done paleontology, and we've done the human brain, and we've done a continent study on Africa. So with each of those, we did an intensive sort of between 4 and 6 weeks of enjoying literature and culture and art and sort of music and activities and books that is on that topic for that time. And we just do that. We're not doing other things as well. We're doing literacy and numeracy, but we're not doing, another topic. We just do that topic. And we try and hit that 3 times a week. So we'll have that over our morning tea, lunch, kind of morning time that we do that. And the kids create journals on that topic. And then by the end of that block, that's finished. We take all the books that were very overdue back to the library and finish up that. And then we've got a journal that is a real great memoir of that time and learning that we've had on that topic. And then we have a week break for me to gather bits and pieces, and then we start another topic. So the Steiner very much, I suppose, gave different ideas for that. So everyone here, you do not have to do every topic, every subject all the time. It actually works better. And I find what happens is because you're immersing so deeply, we're talking about these things as we drive around, as we go out and about at the dinner table. Oh, imagine, did you know about this? And we learned this today, and all the different conversations that you end up having because you're so deep in that topic for that block of time. So that's really, really valuable too, pinching that from the Steiner approach.
And I have to say that one of those workshops that you did in the summit for me was the biggest aha moment. Exactly what you were saying. Even though we weren't spending all day homeschooling, nowhere near it. For me, it was this big release of, wait a second, why am I trying to do all this stuff at once? One, it's so much work for me. Two, like you said, and at the same time, I was reading Us Out. I don't know if you've read that by John Holt, but it was the same deal where he's like, we tell the kids, hey, let's learn about this, but now we need to stop and we need to move to this, even though you might be really, really wanting to delve deep in this. Sorry, we have to move on. And same, you reiterated that in that workshop, and I just it gave, I think it just relaxed me, to be honest. And I went, okay, we can do
It's
this
so
instead.
freeing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the funny thing is, even though you're saying we're doing a history unit, just we did something similar, but we just read a book. So we started The Little House on the Prairie of season. We started number one, reading the book, not the video. And in that, just reading in that, the amount of science, maths, history, that is in just reading that book. And so while I'm reading, they talk about the rag doll, the only physical toy that they have. And then all of a sudden I turn around and my daughter's got her old socks. She's got a hot glue gun out. She's got her sewing stuff. And she's made two rag dolls as I'm reading for
That's
her and my
so
son.
cool.
Yeah. And I just went, okay. And that was for me was like, Penny's right. Like, I
Oh,
can do it this
so
way.
it's just one of those things you look back and go, "That was so obvious. How did I not know that?" But I think especially when you're just starting and you're just trying to figure it all out and you've got the pressures of people going, "Oh, so you work 9 till 3 every day," and people at, the shopping center, "You're on holidays," or, you've just got so many pressures going on just to have some time and space. And I think over the summer is a perfect opportunity just to reflect and go, "Okay, what can I do differently? What's not working?" Not to chop and change every week because that's a bit tempting too, but just to go, what's not working? And we don't have to do everything all at once. In fact, it's better. And when I realized that, when I got to the point, because at first I was like, oh, yeah, we don't have to, but I'll just like throw in a history reading, just, a couple of days a week, as well as doing the science. But then I realized, no, it actually, my children learn better, we learn better, and we're just so immersed in it, especially when you add in some extra audio books to just wash over them. So in that afternoon session, after they've done all that hard work, learning, then they can sit and play Lego or color or paint and listen to the audiobooks that's still on that topic. It might be a book, like we've been listening to some great biographies of people visiting Africa, and they were on topic. And so you just pick up so much in a book, in a story, and that's so much extra learning rather than squeezing in another subject in that time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you also forget that you're doing a morning session and then they're, like you said, they're playing or doing whatever they want and listening to an audiobook. But there's so many other hours to the day where they're naturally learning and they're probably hitting science because they're doing a little experiment of their own, whether it be play or whatever it is, they're actually hitting all that stuff anyway. Like
Yeah.
you don't have to stress as much.
Yeah.
So pros and cons, and you really, I feel like you've already thoroughly
Yeah.
spoken about this, but pros and cons that you navigated and anything that you haven't already mentioned and how you adjusted for those cons that you found within what you were doing.
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is just not to feel pressure to follow the school at home approach and not to feel pressure to include everything at once. And through this series of podcasts and whatever you're looking at over the summer, I think people will feel really fired up and really excited, especially after a summit, to try so many different things. And it's just having the self-control to go, okay, I want to choose one thing and I'm going to work out and mull over it and think about it and work out practically how can I incorporate that into my home, give it a go, and then try it out and give it a good go for a month or so and make it manageable and make it, set the goals that they're actually achievable. And it might just be, okay, I want to try having a read aloud time together as a family. And that's a big Charlotte Mason thing. And just a simple thing, I want to try doing that, or try going for a nature walk once a week. Something that you like, and try it, because I feel like I get excited and overwhelmed. And the times that I've had to really juggle and adjust is where I've gone, oh, we'll try this and we'll try this, and we get all excited. And then you fall in the heap 2 weeks later and say, it doesn't work, or it's too much. And so learning just to do one thing at a time. And when you have that one thing, say, for example, you want to do a read aloud session, you might do it. I find a great time to read aloud is when the kids are eating. So either morning tea or lunch, and sit there. They've got food, especially if you've got little ones, keeping them busy with food and with other bits and pieces. And so just doing that once. And then once you feel after a month or 3 weeks, whatever, you go, wow, this is actually, I don't have to think about this anymore. It's become automatic. It's really ingrained in our homeschooling and in our family culture. And then you can go, great, what else do I want to try? And then add another thing in. So trying one thing at a time, and wait till that's really rolling along, and then adding something else in.
Yeah, awesome advice, especially
Gotcha.
in the early days where you can get so, and like you said, summertime actually, you get so gung ho, everyone's overwhelmed within 2 weeks. How has your homeschool evolved? And I'll sort of throw a bit in here because you've got multiple ages. So, how has it evolved considering as a child gets older or moves into teen years? Have you had to change the approach, or, fix it a little because of the ages? Or have you not found that?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's definitely seasons when your kids are little, your focus is those strong foundations of early literacy and numeracy, but presenting them in a really hands-on, play-based approach. So, as I said before, I use a lot of movement. So, using, chalk letters and chalk numbers on the pavement, or jumps on the trampoline to learn to jump one. One jump means one, that one-to-one correspondence. And so very active. So I found I had to be really available. So in the morning, I'd make sure after breakfast I was available to go and work with the younger children when they were younger, to build those foundations. And so the older kids, I'd sort of train them to be a little bit more independent. They were still practicing the same skills of numeracy and literacy at their own level while I was doing that. So that was something had to juggle. And then as the kids get older now, instead of working one-on-one with them as much, I can be in the kitchen sort of preparing morning tea or preparing lunch or something when they're doing that independent stuff. So just sort of juggling a bit more when they're younger, when they're sort of all wanting your attention, can be a bit challenging, but it is a season and it passes quickly. And so when they get older, they're more independent. But another thing that the Charlotte Mason approach I didn't really mention is the morning time. So morning time is a way to connect together as a family. So it's the picture of, you might have heard it as morning basket and morning time. Some people do it in the morning, some people do it in the afternoon, some people like to do it around the couch, some people do it at the table. We personally do it at the table because, as I said, food's the biggest draw card. So that's the time where we engage as a family. So around the table, we set up, I have morning tea for everyone, usually just do bowls of fruit and then some goodies, a cup of tea or whatever. And that's the time where we do our delving into stories, and we do some memory work, poetry work. If we're learning, Bible verse together or a song together, we look at artwork and we make observations about artwork. We listen to classical music pieces around either a time period or a particular composer. And same with the artwork, it's either a time period or a particular artist. And we make those observations as a family, and we read on topics. So, for example, we've just finished our Africa study. So we would read a picture book based on Africa, a fable based on Africa. We would read a chapter of our chapter book based on Africa. And so when the children were younger, it was important to include a lot more picture books and fables, nursery rhymes, fairy tales, those sort of style of literature. And the other thing that was really important when the children were younger was I made sure that at the table there were things for them to do. Once they finished their food, there was something. So I'd usually keep it on topic. So I'd have some colouring pages or a little art, very simple sort of watercolour art activity on topic. So if we were doing space, for example, I might have some step-by-step how to paint planets. And so I'd have pictures of them. So it does take a bit of preparation, but I'd make sure, and I still do this when the kids are older. And the thing that's interesting, you sort of set these things up for the little kid and you think, oh, the older kids aren't interested, but they actually are. They actually love it too. So with the little kids, probably when they were younger and not really able to participate in the sort of pencil paper type things, I make sure they had a little box where they would have puzzles or Play-Doh or beads, threading beads on, or just something, or stickers on a book, or something really simple that kept their fingers busy and their mouths quiet while they were listening. And it would usually get to a point where in the morning time, we'd sort of start with our song and our poem and things, you'd be doing things that last 30 seconds or a minute or 2 minutes. And then you read a picture book and they would be engaged for most of that, probably the first 20, 30 minutes. And then when we got to the chapter book, often they'd want to get down from the high chair and go and play somewhere close by, or they'd run outside or something. And then the older children would still be left at the table to hear the storybook, the chapter book. But definitely as the kids get older, that's a lot different. I still read picture books. The kids still love picture books, even the older
I think they
children
do
love.
too.
So I think it's really important to do that. And although the children can all read, it's really lovely to spend that time reading to them. And then obviously the choice of the books is another thing to consider, of multiple ages and different stages, is the different volume and depth of the volume in terms of how long the chapters are, and the depth and level of detail in some of the books and topics, sort of things like wars and things that might be a little bit more full on. Like some Africa books have been pretty full on, lots of really sad stories, people getting eaten by a lion. A child's friend got eaten by a lion and then his uncle got shot. And so just sort of, I suppose, just being smart about which books you choose at different ages as well. So that would be my thoughts on those different years. Yeah.
And in terms of the morning time, just to obviously when people listen, you're very organized, Penny, and the way you're doing that. This is not, you're not doing this 7 days a week. Am I correct in saying that? These morning time, are you doing those every day, or how many times would you do that sit down at the table morning time?
Yeah, we try to aim for 3 days a week because we have co-op
Yeah.
one day, and then Friday's just I call it Friday finishing housework day. We clean the house, if they've got any, journal work to finish or bits and pieces to finish. And yeah, so 3 days a week is what we try and aim for.
Yeah, beautiful. And that already, when you take away that school at home, already saying, oh, okay, that's much more manageable, the 3 days a week. Do you find that all your kids need something to keep their fingers busy? I actually had to, in my head, one of my children, when we do reading or when she's listening to an audiobook or anything she's doing, she's uses that and has something else going on, like fingers. Whereas I actually had to hold back, and because my son, he's quite happy. He's the more active kid. But when we're sitting and reading, he just wants to cuddle in and listen. And I was like, but you need to be doing something else. Find that you have different kids. Sometimes kids are happy just to sit and listen. Sometimes they're engaging, and any which way they want to do that, it's fine during that time. Or do you have specific sort of expectations?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if he wants to sit and cuddle, then that's beautiful. How nice. He
I
wouldn't
know.
have that if he was at school. Yeah, definitely. I have kids who don't even eat because they're so engrossed. I'm like, eat your morning tea. It's an hour on and they're still not finished their morning tea, and it's like lunchtime. And other children who want to do, as they get older, they have ideas. So my daughter loves to crochet, and so she just brings her crochet to the table. And then my boy
Yeah,
loves to do Lego, so he does that, and then the others like to listen. So I think it's great seeing them as they get older start to decide, I'll do that for morning time. And so we have a basket where we keep our books that we're reading in, and then I often, in the basket, if I'm planning, our unit studies and I come across some coloring pages or a simple outline for a watercolor or something, I just print them out and throw them in the basket with the books. And I just say, oh, if anyone wants something, look in the basket and find something. Sometimes I set something up, like when we did Africa, I wanted to do this particular painting activity, so I set that all up, but I probably don't do that. Probably every couple of weeks, I might do something specific. I say, I really like you to do this during it, but other than that, they choose their own or they just sit and not do too much.
Yeah, beautiful. It's been very interesting listening to you and how you've actually merged these different approaches together. Because I think no one would think twice about the fact that that's the way you're doing things, but you have sort of pulled from these specific different approaches and styles. And I think it's really nice to hear that done so well and so beautifully. You were to suggest to people that have loved listening to what you've had to say in terms of books or resources, further learning podcasts, what are some of the suggestions where would you send people, including yourself, and people?
Yeah, I think if you want to know more about classical, then the Well-Trained Mind book by Susan Bauer is pretty much the standard big thick book, has everything you need. It explains things really well. I think if you're looking for Charlotte Mason, then there's a Simply Charlotte Mason website podcast that's US based, but I think that she explains things really well and it will have lots of recommendations for different books to read. If you're looking for learning resources for Charlotte Mason approach, then The Good and Beautiful is also US based, but they have a lot of free curriculum for their maths
Yes.
and language arts. And there's also heaps of science. We use a lot of their science. They do have a history program as well. And if you're looking for something Australian, then can't go past Michelle Morrow with My Homeschool, that Charlotte Mason approach. And she does have a full all-encompassing program. However, she also has some great specific recommendations, blog posts and other resources for those who are wanting to put together their own homeschooling, but also would love something Australian. Also, Nature Study Australia, Mari, she's got a great nature study program. She's in New South Wales, I think, maybe Victoria. And so they're great PDF nature learning guides for nature walks and learning nature in your backyard. So that's a great resource. And with her, on her website, you can also find Jo has done a really lovely family learning guide for maths, nature maths. So she's got a few different topics there. And I'd really recommend Jo's work as well. So there, yeah, a few things to look into.
And where can we find you, Penny?
Yeah, so look up Flourish Homeschool. You'll find me there. So I've got some blogs that just about my different musings and my different thoughts about our journey over the last 10 years. So yeah, have a read of those. Might be something there that encourages you or sits well with you. And I've also got a family learning guide, Rocks and Gems, for sale on my website. And I also do coaching service. So I am based in WA, but I do online coaching as well. And over the next few months, I hope to have some workshops for sale up and running as well on family learning. So how to set up family learning for yourself and for your family in various subject areas.
Yes, beautiful. And if you are in membership or have the registration bundle, Penny gives you an overview of those things so that when her workshop comes out, hopefully you really, other than the podcast, you can connect and understand how much value I think these workshops will be. All the links will be down below. On your website, is there a way that people can sign up to an email list so they know that these things are coming? Or what's the best way for them?
Definitely.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so there's a subscription box there. I also have a Facebook page and Instagram as well, so you can follow along there if you like.
And that'll all be underneath the podcast. So make sure in our description. So make sure you check Penny out there. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to listen to you lay it out for us. And I think you've covered everything so beautifully. I have nothing else to add. So
I
thank you
feel
so
like
much.
there's still so much to say, but that's the thing when you start going into different approaches, it's really endless, isn't it?
And it's just beautiful to know that I think we were discussing this before the podcast, Penny, that in Australia, a lot of these different approaches probably aren't on display as much openly or easily. It's very well known, like unschooling is very well known, which is a beautiful approach. And so is, a more academic approach. But these ones in between, as a new homeschooler, it's not as easy to find or understand or given examples, which you've done beautifully today, of how those are used in a home. So you could talk about them all day, but it's been beautiful to listen to you. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for
thanks.
joining us.
And I think it's just that every family needs to find what works for them. So, yeah, encourage people to go out there and really research and look into what approaches are out there, not in a way to feel overwhelmed, but in a way to feel empowered to go, oh, I really like this about this approach. I might give it a try, because we have the freedom to create our own version of our own family approach, really.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of homeschooling.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks so
Check
much for
out,
having me.
not a problem, and check out Penny. Thank you, Penny.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Well, that's a wrap for our chat with Penny Graham from Flourish Homeschool and our glimpse into her Charlotte Mason classical with a sprinkle of Steiner inspired homeschool. Fearless members, I highly recommend checking out her summit workshop, The Joy of Family Learning. If you want to connect more with Penny, you can find her over at Flourish Homeschool, either on socials or her website. She provides coaching services, a blog with her thoughts on many things homeschooling, and a family learning guide to purchase. So that's a wrap for week 2. I'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us on the Fearless Homeschool podcast. If you'd like to stay connected in between episodes, check us out on socials at Fearless Homeschool. And if you'd like to hear more about our Fearless Homeschool journey, sign up to our Fearless Family Fables newsletter. But don't forget to subscribe so that you're the first to know when a new episode drops. Because
why do it alone?